And welcome, my friend, back again to another special edition here of the Red Delta Project podcast with another episode to help you be fit and live free. Today is a bonus episode. I'm here with my good friend and fellow coach, Al Kavadlo. Al has continuing his evolution as an athlete, as a coach, as a calisthenics practitioner with his brand new program that's coming out, Ultimate Calisthenics. And I've got him here. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about evolution. We're going to be talking about how it's a good thing for things to progress and change. And basically, he's thrown everything into this program here, which is a very unique thing to find, especially this day and age, because one of the things I've gravitated towards, and it's almost encouraged in our space, is that you've got to make information bite-sized, short little snippets. Like, people's attention spans are going to nothing, so it's so rare and hard to find an information resource like his new program that just gives you loads of resources and information rather than just drip feeding you little bits here and there and hoping you can fill in the gaps on your own. So without further ado, Al, welcome once again to the Red Delta Project podcast.
Hey, Matt. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to have you on here. First and foremost, I know we touched on it a little bit before recording and stuff, but you are safe and okay right now because there is a hurricane barreling down on you guys in Florida at the moment, right?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm in Central Florida in Ocala. So the trade-off is I'm like an hour and a half from the beach, but the hurricanes don't hit hard here either. So
I'm
I think
glad
it's
to
worth
hear
it.
it. Yeah, I mean, the whole state's basically built on a swamp, from what I've understood. My dad's a big historian of Florida, and I'm always hearing about how it got built up and everything. But it seems like, it's one of those areas that's kind of rife for damage from storms and stuff.
Well, part of why I chose to move to Ocala, I knew I wanted to come to Florida. But Florida's a really big state with a ton of cities in it, is because I did a little bit of research. Ocala and this general area of Florida in the middle, it's safer than a lot of the other places. You're not going to get flooded because you're not right by the water, the
Hmm.
hurricanes, et cetera. I mean, hopefully I'm not jinxing myself right now, but generally they don't pass through here, and
Yep.
generally there's less of those types of concerns. But yeah, no, it is a scary time to be alive if you want to give in to fear, but that's never been my mindset.
Right. You've always been more about growth, evolution, empowering people. That's always what attracted me to your first videos and messages back in the day. Like, you always were working out with a smile on your face. And there seems to be a lot of doom and gloom in the fitness industry. Every time you turn to social media, it's like, don't ever do this and don't ever do that. And you're killing your gains and stuff. Your stuff has always been more about here's how you actually become successful with this stuff, and it's much more empowering. And that's carrying over to your new program, correct?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And I don't think it's just the fitness industry. It's just social media and the world in general. It's just so polarizing, and so many people wanting to make you afraid and make you think you're doing things wrong and make you think you can't do it without them. And obviously it's good to have a guide. I mean, that's why I put this course out, because people do need information and they need guidance. But like you said, I want to be encouraging, I want to be supportive, I want to be motivating, and I don't want to spread fear. That's the opposite of what I want to do.
Yeah. So this is a new program that, as you were talking about earlier, it seems like you have thrown your decades of experience and knowledge into this singular program. And it includes quite a few strategies and tactics as far as being able to utilize calisthenics. Does this program have a particular angle or direction you're taking things in, or is it a treasure trove of resources?
Well, I would say it's more. I think of it more as like an online course and an ebook than a program, because it has three different programs in it, depending on
Uh,
your level. And then there's a whole lot of other information about what else can you do, because three programs is only going to last you for so long. It's not necessarily a lifetime's worth of training in that part. But then I have this whole bonus section where I talk a lot about my exercise philosophy, programming philosophy, all these other exercises, how we can incorporate them. And it's something else that I've always done is encouraged my clients and followers to listen to their own body and go with their own firsthand experience, and not just blindly follow my program to the letter if something is happening differently for them. So I always like to present options, almost like a choose your own adventure, more than just a novel that you read from beginning to end.
I like it a lot. And that's always the flexibility and the ability to have people do things kind of in the way that's best for them. It's not a message you hear a whole lot in our fitness culture these days of do things your way. Here are the things you want to keep in mind. And it seems like there's a lot of stuff out there that is more geared towards, well, just do as I say and just follow along, ignore your body, ignore what you want to do, or ignore your circumstances and just force yourself to conform to the program. So this is a little bit more about helping people discover their own path to a degree. Is that correct?
My whole motivation for even starting a blog and a YouTube channel way back in 2009 when I did was because I'd been a full-time personal trainer for years, working at a really busy mainstream gym. I was in New York at the time, and there was so much emphasis on what I felt were the wrong things in that culture. You know, uh, the flashy outfits and the sneakers and the protein shake and all the stuff that wasn't really necessary, and the shiny machines and the fancy equipment and the gadgets and the tracking your heart rate and doing all this stuff. And not that tracking your heart rate's bad, but I felt like so much of mainstream fitness was missing the bigger picture, and was also trying to tell people, oh well, you couldn't do this without the gym, you can't do this without us. And my whole message was, especially in the beginning, I wanted to just be the antithesis of that. I wanted to, like you said, encourage people and empower people. You don't need a gym. You don't need anything. The old cliche, you give a person a fish and they'll eat a meal. You teach them to fish, they eat for a lifetime. And I felt like so much of the fitness culture was just giving you a fish and then, okay, give me something else and I'll give you another fish. And with this Ultimate Calisthenics program, my hope is that people can get this program. It can last them for a very, very long time. Maybe they never need to get another course again. Maybe they want to. I mean, obviously, there's other things besides calisthenics. Maybe they want to get a kettlebell course or try some other stuff. But I really wanted this to be like a one-stop for all your calisthenics needs.
I really like that attitude because when I got into fitness, the first, I would say probably 5 to 8 years or so, I always like was like, okay, I can like follow the rules and I can do what all the folks are saying. I'll get the protein shake and I'll get the heart rate tracker. And I used to go out for bike rides and I'd literally have like 3 pieces of electronics on my handlebar. I got like my GPS and I got my heart rate tracker and I got this, and my handlebar looked like the Starship Enterprise every time I went out for a bike ride. And I found that the more that I kind of conformed to a bunch of those messages, the more I became basically just dependent upon all those things that they were trying to sell me and feed me and encourage me to keep doing. And that's why I was like, well, I want to be in shape, but I don't have to be so dependent on things. And ultimately, that's why I fell into calisthenics, is because it seemed to encourage independence rather than straight up dependence. And it seems like this program is kind of the type of programming, the type of thing that calisthenic practitioners need to follow, because I find, I don't know about you, but I find a lot of people when they come into the world of calisthenics, they almost are falling more into a dependence of like, okay, what's the exact right way to do a handstand? What's the correct way to program? And should I, depend on, ab wheels, push up handles, that sort of thing? Or am I okay with just a pull up bar? These sorts of ideas. And this is breaking us out of that dependence methodology.
Yeah, that's something that I talk about throughout this course is you have options. There are exercises like a human flag, for example. Do you have to do human flag to get in great shape? Of course not. But if it's a cool move, and I don't know anyone who can do it who isn't in great shape, and if you want to learn it, I'm certainly a good person to teach it to you. Or a lot of these advanced calisthenics pursuits, they're not necessarily essential if you just want to be fit and able to play with your kid or whatever. But a
Mhm.
lot of the people that go down the rabbit hole like to go all the way.
Yeah, yeah. So are there a lot of what's like new about this sort of thing? Because some people, they're coming to this new course and they're familiar with your stuff. They're familiar with Get Strong and they're familiar with your YouTube videos and stuff. What is unique and special about this course particularly?
Well, I think this is the most inclusive, expansive thing that I've done. You know, it's pretty much the culmination of my whole calisthenics career. And if you've gotten other things of mine in the past, there's certainly some information in here. I mean, a push-up is a push-up, a squat is a squat. Those exercises are in there. It's not like if you've read Get Strong and you've read a bunch of my other books, there isn't going to be a ton of brand new stuff in here, although there might be a couple of different tips on some of these exercises or a couple of different ways of sequencing them that maybe you hadn't considered. But I think what makes this unique is the format in which it's presented, because it's got a 180-page ebook with all the exercises and descriptions and lots, like I said, questions and answers and descriptions of different pieces of equipment and philosophies about why you might use this or why you might want to do it that way. And then it also has a video library with a video tutorial on every exercise that's in the program and a bunch of other just motivational videos of me explaining some of the material from the book and just further reiterating it. So I think it's really useful for people to have a multimedia sort of experience to fully absorb the information. And I just wanted to make this as thorough as I could possibly make it.
I like that it's much more of that comprehensive nature, not just in the information that's presented, but also in the formats and stuff, because ultimately it's not knowing the information that's really useful. I mean, I can read textbooks all day long about nutrition and kinesiology and things of that nature, but it's really coming to an understanding of the content in its application, and particularly the application for me or the individual itself on how to use it in the best way possible. And that's something as a coach I've always kind of struggled with is, sure, I could present information to you, but understanding it and implementing it in a practical way can be a bit of a challenge. So it seems like this is much more than here's how you do a push-up or here's a pull-up variation that's great for the biceps, but more of the comprehensive here's how you put it all together kind of approach.
Well, that and also with calisthenics and any exercise for that matter, it's really sometimes challenging with only photos and text to really show what the exercise is supposed to look like. And in all my previous books, that's what I had to work with. So I was really wanting to put a video component with this too, because I feel like sometimes people still can miss some of the nuance of these things. And even with video, there still might be some people who miss some nuances. But I also encourage people, something about you and me is we're both very available for people to reach out to us. If they're doing the program and they got a question, well, send an email, send a Facebook message or whatever.
Yeah, and that's always one of the things that will be unique about you as well is how much are you coaching them directly? Because a lot of times when people will pick up a book or they'll watch a YouTube video, the help and the resources ends there. Like that's the end. You get to the end of the book and you're like, okay, that's it. End of story. That's as far as I go. But you're always taking things further for those who want to learn and get stronger. You're always providing more value with your videos and social media and everything else that you're putting out there. There's not really an end to it. You're always there for those who want to get strong.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, if somebody has a lot of questions, well, then I have to set up more of a personal trainer client relationship with them. But I always, if someone has a quick question or two or three, I'm happy to take a few minutes and help them out, especially if it's somebody who's bought one of my programs. But even if they haven't, even just a random stranger who sends me a message, unless the question is completely ridiculous or they're really rude about it, I'm always going to write back to everybody.
Oh, that's a lot of hard work there, Coach. It's hard for a lot of people to do that. I sometimes will get an email from someone asking a question, and I'm busy to the point where it's like, oh, that's right. I haven't gotten to this back to this individual all day. I need to get on that sort of thing. So it's commendable. I really admire the fact that you're doing that sort of thing because a lot of times you never know how just one little piece of information or one little tweak in a question can totally revolutionize someone's perspective on how to train and get the most out of their workouts.
Something that amazes me is that a lot of the people who write to me with questions almost seem to know the answer to their question. And they just kind of want me to be like, yeah, you're on the right path. It's okay. So that's a pretty easy thing to tell people if that's all it is. It doesn't mean I'm writing back 5 paragraphs to everyone,
I have this image in my head of someone writing like pages and pages and pages of text, and you respond with, "Yeah, sounds good. Do that." And then you
Yeah,
just finish
that's the type.
there.
Maybe they'll get 2 or 3 sentences more than that, but that's generally how it goes. But a
Yeah,
lot of the time,
because
that's all they need to hear.
yeah, yeah. I find that a lot of, the popular messages out there that create the dependence also create a high degree of uncertainty out there. We're all grown adults, and it's amazing how many times we kind of like, okay, should are eggs okay? Like, wait, what if I work out in the morning? Like, I don't know, is that okay? Am I fine to work out in the morning? It seems like there's a lot of that fear mongering out there that's created so much
Well,
of this
there is,
uncertainty.
and then also there's this thing where people want to maybe find an excuse to not do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
well, the only time I can do it is in the morning, and that's bad, right? So my hands are tied. So you get that
Right.
sometimes.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I didn't think about that, where people are looking for the excuse. Oh, yeah, I guess that's not possible for me to do. So I'm just going to put in my hands. Oh, there's nothing I can do about it. I guess this isn't possible for me.
And
So when,
mhm.
hmm?
I was just going to say, it's interesting for me, and maybe you could relate to this. I'm so often in a position of holding people accountable to do what they said they're going to do when it comes to their workouts. But I sometimes am not outside of fitness. I sometimes have things like that. It's like, oh, I know I need to do this thing. I don't really want to do it.
Hmm.
So it's interesting. I think everyone has something that maybe they know they could be working more on or doing something better, and it's a challenge to stay on top of it. And for a lot of people, that's their fitness, and that's one thing that I really like and comes very naturally to me. So I've embraced it, as you have as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's kind of crazy for me to look back and realize where I am now, because this was always something that was like, oh gosh, I'll never be doing that sort of thing or into that kind of thing, because I never liked to exercise very much when I was much younger. And one of the key things there was I didn't like it that much because I was always doing it on someone else's orders. Like, I hate doing push-ups because my basketball coach is telling me to do them. I hate running laps. It's like because the gym teacher told me to run laps. But the moment I started to be like, I want to get stronger, I'm deciding to do push-ups. I'm the one making the choice to eat more vegetables and cut back on junk food and stuff. I found, for me personally, that was a huge empowerment right there, is to have that independent choice. But again, we run into the challenge of that's hard to do when you're following all these messages that create so much uncertainty of, don't trust yourself, don't trust your body, don't listen to what you think is better for you. So how do you think we can break out of that vicious cycle?
I mean, you're right that there is a lot of messaging out there saying, "Hey, you're an idiot. Listen to me. Don't trust yourself," and that kind of stuff bothers me. And I try to do the opposite of that. Like I said, I encourage people. No, if something feels weird to you, then maybe your body's trying to tell you something, and pay attention. And maybe you have a way of doing it that's going to be better for you than the way that I'm doing it for me, and that's cool if that's how it ultimately winds up going. But
Hmm.
I think part of that you mentioned also with your diet that's something that you made the decision. Wait, I want to be healthier. And I think with diet and with exercise, but even more with diet, people have this mindset that they're like depriving themselves of something if they don't get to eat all the junk food and sweets and fried bullshit that they want to have. But my mindset on this, like, I'm not depriving myself of something. I'm giving myself a gift by putting nourishing foods in my body and not putting, garbage foods in my body. And that's sort of how I feel about exercise too. Not that people feel like they're depriving themselves of something by exercising, but maybe they're depriving themselves of the laziness and the comfort of not exercising. But you can
Hmm.
still have the comfort of not exercising for 23 hours a day. Just get that workout in too. And that's the thing that I think is so funny about exercise. And like people act like it's so hard, and it's like you don't have to do that much. A few hours a week, that's it. We've got 172 hours in a week. You can't spend 3 of them working out.
Hmm. Yeah, I've personally, because
Like for
my
yourself,
schedules.
not for
Yeah.
me, but like for you, your life's going to be so much better. It's such a
Hmm.
huge return on such a small investment.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think people really underestimate how much value there is from, not, I wouldn't say doing very little, but from a relatively small amount of activity. Like, sometimes I'll just get a set of bridges and some pull-ups while I'm waiting for a client at the gym. And even though it's not like this big hard workout or anything, I'll be like training that client and it's like, oh, my back feels so much better because I was sitting all morning, editing videos, or, it's like, oh, now I feel like I'm kind of more in my own body and my element, with a bit of a pump in my arms and my back and everything. Just a little bit goes a long way. And that's one of the things that I've always loved about calisthenics, is that you can get movement and activity, uh, in my opinion, a heck of a lot easier. Because when I always feel like, oh, I got to go to the gym and it's got to be this big deal and stuff, to me, that's kind of like always going and saying, I can only eat at a restaurant. Like, this, the only time I can ever eat is if I go and have a sit down restaurant and order from a menu and everything like that. But you don't underestimate the value of grabbing just a glass of water and having an apple in the middle of the afternoon. And
That's
it's
a
the
great
same thing with
comparison.
physical activity. These things, these little snacks, movement snacks, can really be of value to you.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. And
But
as far as we were talking before about this culture of people and influencers, whoever wanting to tell you you're doing something wrong and you need them. My whole thing, I hope that the way that people receive my messaging is, I love this. I care about this. I'm into this. I've been doing this for pretty much my whole life.
yeah.
And yeah, it is my living. And I'm lucky that there are people who are willing to pay me for my products and to pay me for my personal training. But I want to give out free information too, and that's cool. Not everyone has to buy this program. I mean, if people like what I'm doing and they like listening to me talk and they like my teachings and they find it useful, I mean, this book is more thorough and more well organized than any of the free content I have on social media. But I want people to enjoy the free stuff too. And
Oh,
then, like I said, if
100%.
they love the free stuff, then yeah, support old Val.
Yeah, I always look at the products that I put out there as more of a convenience item than anything else. Of like, look, all the information in my programs and my books and stuff, it's all out there for free. You certainly don't need this, but it's gonna be tricky to piece it all together from the podcasts and the YouTube videos and everything else that I put that. Or you can read it all in a weekend in this one book, or get it all in one
It's
comprehensive
organized, and yeah,
place.
it's all in one place.
Yeah. Now, if someone was coming into the world of like calisthenics and they were a beginner, right, and they're coming across
Mhm.
your program, I'm assuming that naturally this program works well for the beginner and the
Absolutely. I
intermediate
mean, I
and the
think
advanced.
that's probably the person who will get the most out of this as a beginner, because everything in it will be new to them. Like I said, people, they've been following me for years and they've done some of my other programs and read some of my other books. Some of this information is going to be stuff that they've heard before,
Hmm.
but someone who's brand new, I mean, it's going to blow their mind. I'd
Oh,
like to think that at
fantastic.
least.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why, I get questions. I don't know about yourself, but I get questions from people all the time asking me, like, I'm a beginner. So what do I do? Like, what book or what program should I start with and everything? And it's like, well, it kind of depends on what your goals are. That's what the books are about, but they're all geared for the range of practitioners. Nothing is only for advanced individuals. So this is something that's highly adaptable to whatever someone's bringing to the table. Is that correct?
Yeah, you said something, I think, at the beginning or maybe before we were recording, about how a lot of fitness things are very, narrowly focused. And I've certainly done some of that. Like, I have a program called Old Man Strength that's calisthenics for guys over 40, which is like a niche within a niche. So
Hmm.
I get a lot of messages from people too asking, like, what program should I start with? And I wanted to have a really good one to refer them to if that was the case, regardless of whether they were 20 or 30 or 40. And
Yep.
I wanted to have something to refer to people to also if they're not a beginner and they want some guidance. So that's why this is Ultimate Calisthenics. This is going to be the product that anyone who writes to me, who's looking for a general calisthenics program, this is for them. This is the one.
I love it. It's hard to make something comprehensive. I tried it years ago with one of my first books, and it was really hard to distill all that information down into a comprehensive system or program. So is this like a step-by-step thing, or is it more of like, here are the tools and here's how you use them?
You
How
know,
did you organize everything?
that was probably the biggest challenge was not having it be too long and exhausting. You know, I did a book with my brother Danny for Dragon Door several years ago called Street Workout. And I'm proud of that book. And we wanted it to be sort of the same thing that this is, but it was just a book. There was no videos to go with it. And we just put everything in the kitchen sink in that. And sometimes I look at that book and it's like 300 some odd pages long. I'm like, this is like too much. It's we could have edited it down a little bit more. But that is what it is for someone who wants, you know, the maximal. Every single variation is discussed in that book, and there's some really esoteric stuff that we got into with that one. And I thought
Mhm.
that, you know, let me dial it back a little bit for this one and make it a little bit more streamlined than that was.
So efficiency is kind of where you're going with. So it's a balance you got to strike. I get asked a
Yeah.
lot. For some reason, the calisthenics community tends to promote, or people fall into it, wanting the ultimate like minimalist style of training, where they're like, okay, what if I had nothing but pull-ups and push-ups, and that's all I ever did? Would that be enough, kind of thing? So yeah, how are you balancing out this pull towards minimize, minimize, minimize? But at the same time, there's, of course, examples and individuals out there who are like more, 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 and they've got like 15 different push up variations in a workout. Where do you find this balance and sweet spot is between the two of minimalism and just ever expansion?
Well, I've done a lot of calisthenics books and programs over the years, and you get feedback from people. And sometimes people have a perspective that you hadn't considered because you're seeing it through your perspective when you're creating it. And the more of these things that I've done, and the more that I've talked to people, and the more that I've trained people and trained groups and taught workshops, the more I've streamlined my process and the more I've found the most universal ways to present information to make it as absorbable as possible to as many people as possible. And you know, that said, there's going to be someone out there who's going to buy this thing and be like, "This is fucking bullshit. I hate this," because you can't please everybody. But I think the vast majority of people who get it are going to be
Yeah.
really happy with it and are going to be kept busy with it for a very long time should they choose to actually pursue it. I mean, that's the thing with buying a course or a program or a book or whatever, is that's just the first step. Then you've actually got to put it into action. And of course, that's why a lot of people need one-on-one coaching, because it's hard to make that leap from, okay, I want to do this thing, to actually doing it. And there's going to be bumps along the way. And I want to check in with somebody who's got some experience here to make sure that I'm proceeding in a way that's acceptable.
And you're doing that too, of course, where I know you offer a lot of online and remote coaching resources through Fortify. So we've got that option. Do you still do like one-on-one, or is it all remote at this time?
I stopped training people in person when I moved out here to Ocala, in part because there's just not that many people to train. And you know, the world
Yeah.
has just gotten to the
Yeah.
point where the internet allows me to reach people all over, and the convenience on my end of working from home makes it really nice. And you know, this format that we're using right now, this is how I train people now. And it's just something that when I first got into personal training, I mean, the internet was still a pretty small part of our culture. People didn't have smartphones yet. Social media wasn't a thing yet. So if you had told me that this is where it was headed, it just wouldn't have made any sense to me. I wouldn't have even thought it could work. I was like, how could you train someone if you're not physically present in the room with them? But it turns
hmm
out you can. And it turns out it's just as effective. In some cases, I actually find it can be even more effective.
I think it's very useful for getting a lot more in-depth conversations going, because when I'm training one-on-one, sometimes I find myself just falling into the trap of like, okay, I'm leading them through a workout and I'm giving them cues, or I'm improving their technique and everything. But a lot of times what we really need to be addressing are some of the more deeper like motivations and the aspects of their entire approach to training of like, okay, so, well, how are we feeling about eating, more protein or vegetables? Like, or how does it feel for you to be working out on your own? It's like, oh, I just can't get motivated when I'm here. It's like, okay, maybe we look at a park that we can work out at. So there's so many nuances to training, I feel, that get not so much ignored, but they just are in the background and we don't think about them when we're just one-on-one there in the gym. And there's just something about our attention just doesn't go towards the stuff that's going on outside the gym, which is super important.
The thing about training people online that I never considered until I did it for a while was that most of the time, if I'm taking somebody through a live workout in a video session like this, they're in their home. So we're finding things in their home that they can use. It's like, okay, that chair over there, we're going to put our hands on that and we're going to do a push-up. We can't do it on the floor. Okay, this wall that you got enough space here, that's where we're going to try to kick up and do a handstand, and then they have that in their home and they're like, oh, that's my handstand wall, that's my pull-up bar. A lot of time I make people get a pull-up bar in their doorway if they don't
Yep.
have one already. And then it's like, it's not, oh, I have to go to the gym to do this. It immerses them in it a little bit more and shows them this is something that can be part of your day-to-day life.
Yeah. And every resource has its advantages, which is one of the reasons I love calisthenics for that, is that when I go to the gym or I'm, working at the gym and I want to get a workout in, it's like, oh, I've got resources and things that are available here that are unique to the environment. And then if I go to the park on the weekend, it's like, oh, I've got resources here that are unique. Or even if it's just something about the environment, like, oh, it's so good to be out in the fresh air or something. Same thing with, being home here and working out stuff here. Everything has its availability, and calisthenics gives us the ability to do all of that. It's not like you're gonna sit at home and just be like, well, I can't work out here. It's like you've got your resources there and outside and in a gym and at a friend's house or what
It,
have you.
it, it changes the whole way you see the world when you really get into it.
It really does. It totally
The
does.
gym is very compartmentalized. I'm going to go to the
Hmm.
gym. I'm going to get on this treadmill and pretend I'm running and simulate this thing. And it's just calisthenics is more holistic, maybe. I don't know if that's the
Hmm.
right word for it.
Yeah, I'm thinking in my mind now of like these kind of 1940s movies, the black and white movies of seeing like factory, robots being made on an assembly line kind of thing, very stale, very mechanical kind of thing. And I always kind of got that sense, particularly in the big box commercial gyms, versus when was first getting into calisthenics. I did a lot of stuff outdoors and on local playgrounds and stuff, and it just felt like it was more holistic and more organic about using the environment and being like, oh, I'm gonna do these pull-ups and I'm gonna sprint over to that soccer goal and then sprint back and things like that. It was more fun and creative versus, well, I wouldn't think to do that if I was in the gym, because it's like, well, there's a piece of equipment and you use that piece of equipment and that's where it starts and that's where it ends, versus having a bunch of the creativity and the problem solving that comes with your natural environment as well.
I think the type of person who gravitates toward calisthenics is generally someone who gym culture is unappealing to them. It's not the type of person who maybe was the captain of the football team or the jock in high school. It's
Hmm.
someone who's maybe a little more cerebral, maybe a little bit more of an introvert. And that's part of the appeal of it. And for that matter, the type of person who wants to work with a remote coach is probably more the type of person who doesn't want to go to the gym. They'd rather have more of a private, intimate experience than be out there on display in front of everybody. And, to that point, there are more and more small private boutique gyms popping up to cater to that clientele as well. And I don't want to, sound too negative about gyms. Anything that anybody's doing that's working for them, that's great. But a lot of people, the gym doesn't appeal to them, doesn't work for them, doesn't create a long-term lasting thing that they can really stick to. And for those people, it's good to have other options.
Yeah. One of the reasons as a coach in particular, like I've always kind of like my mission in coaching in general is I want to make the benefits of health and fitness just accessible and available to as many people around the world as possible, to everyone, if you can. Like, I don't care if you're, living in a little hut in the middle of nowhere on a cornfield in Nebraska, or you're on an island in the Pacific or whatever. Like, everybody should have the tools and the skills to pursue health and fitness if they so choose. And that's one of the reasons why I've always liked calisthenics, for that reason. Is it works with whatever you got for resources, your environment, your space, your skills, your abilities. And the only thing that really a lot of times is just missing is just the knowledge and how to implement it and program and build it together, which is why we have our programs and the information that we put out there. That's often just the missing piece.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've often likened calisthenics to learning an instrument or even a language. You can do it on your own. Lots of people do, but it's certainly useful to have a guide.
100%. Well, especially if you have a guide tailored towards a comprehensive program too. Much more comprehensive, because like back in the early kettlebell days, like I was like, oh, kettlebells, martial artists are doing this sort of thing. And I mean, this was a time when I was living in Vermont, and if you asked someone what a kettlebell was, most of them couldn't even tell you. It
I
was
think that's
unheard
probably
of.
still true. Most people don't know what they are, but they're certainly a lot more mainstream than they used to be.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I finally got like a kettlebell. I found it online, and even then it was hard to find online. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna learn how to use it through like piecemeal YouTube videos and things. I'm gonna use that new YouTube source and stuff. And I watched lots of videos and I practiced and everything until I finally went to like a seminar held by a friend of mine. And in 10 minutes at that seminar, I realized I had no idea what I was doing in the first place with that, because I was piecemealing things together. It was like I was trying to put together the puzzle with all these YouTube videos from, different sources and different coaches. And this guy says to do a swing this way, and this person says to do it a different way and stuff. So there's still a lot of need for a comprehensive unit of a program or a course out there that says, okay, here's everything under one roof, under one instructor, with the information. This is the bare bones. And that's like a good foundation that you can build off of. And I think that's, sadly enough, I don't think there's nearly as much of that now being produced, because so many people are like, well, I'm just going to make this quick TikTok video showing people how to do a kettlebell swing, when it's good information, but it's kind of like trying to subsist on peanuts.
But I think that the practicing that you did on your own was still useful, and probably part of why you were able to get so much out of that in-person workshop is because you had some familiarity with what was being taught already.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think if you had
No, you're
showed up and
right.
had no experience, it might not have clicked that quickly for you.
Ah, I never really considered that. I think you're right. Yeah. As I always say, like sometimes people will ask me, it's like, okay, am I wasting my time if I do it this way or if I train that way? And I always tell, it's like, I don't think there's really much out there that's going to be just a flat out waste of time. There's
I
some
agree.
benefit to everything. It's just a question of how much can you get out of it?
Yeah, I get that question a lot too. Like, oh, is it a waste of time to do X or Y exercise? And I'm always like, anytime you're working towards improving your strength or health, that is definitely not a waste of time. Now, is that exercise or that workout the absolute most effective way that you could be training? Maybe not. Let's talk about it. Let's figure that out. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's definitely not a waste of time. And I think that happens a lot with people, with fitness and with other things. They find a better way to do something, and it's like, oh my god, I was so stupid for so long. But it's like, no, you were doing the best you could with the
Hmm.
information you had to work with. Some new information came to light, and now you're doing better. That's all we can hope for, hopefully.
Yeah, it's an upgrade.
Yeah,
You know, it's taking what you had and you're like, okay, that was good. Now here's how we make it better and stronger and faster and safer. And now you're going to get even more out of it. It's not like what you were doing before was not doing anything at all. And it's it's good to have that progressive mindset, I find. I think one of the other things that holds a lot of folks back within our culture is like someone out there is saying, okay, this is the absolute 100% correct way to do something. And folks kind of like, okay, I'm doing it that way that they gotta say it. So then they take their foot off the gas and think, well, there's no more to learn. There's not much more to go about this. And you and I have been doing the calisthenics thing for, for me, it's been over 15 years. You're longer than that. And I'm still learning. I'm still improving and upgrading things.
You're so right. When you don't know very much and you learn a little bit, you feel like you know a lot more than you really know. And then
Hmm.
as you continue to learn more, you're like, oh, this is bigger than I realized. And you get humbled a little bit. And then you go back to the beginner's mind. But yeah, I think
Yep.
the person who knows the least is that person who knows a little bit. They even, in a way, they know less than the complete beginner, because the complete beginner is at least open-minded.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think
So
back
I
on
think
so
everyone
many.
goes through that phase. I certainly did, where you
Yeah.
think, oh, I mean, before I got into calisthenics, I kind of was like, didn't think it
Yeah.
was worth it. I was a gym bro. I was doing bench presses. I was doing barbell things, all the
Yep.
machines with the pulley sliding up and down.
Yep.
And I knew that was definitely the best way to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, I fell in the same thing. I was doing the exact same thing myself, and I think they call it on Mount Stupid. The Dunning-Kruger effect kind of thing. It's you learn a
Yes.
little bit to be overconfident in your competency, and you go through waves of this too. I find throughout my career that it's like, okay, I've got a good handle on it. I know exactly what I'm doing. I know this is the right way, and never fear, life is always going to throw a wrench into the works and say, oh, you think you know what you're doing, but let me give you this
And
challenge
and
or
when you
this
are
sort of thing.
young,
Hmm.
you don't think to question authority. You're like, who the hell am I? I'm just some kid. This guy's an expert. I'm not going to question what he's saying. He knows what he's talking about. But
Yeah.
nowadays, I mean, there's so many experts who completely contradict other experts. It's like no matter what topic you're looking for information on, you're going to find one person who's highly credentialed who's saying X, and you're going to have the other person who's also highly credentialed saying Y. And it's like, well, they
Hmm.
can't both be right, can they? I mean, in some cases they can, because it's like different things are right in different situations. And in other
Hmm.
instances, one person is just wrong, even though they're an expert. They're not open to things changing or to new information. They learned it the wrong way, and they're stuck in that path, and they've had success. So they don't open their mind to maybe there is something else out there.
Yeah. Or there's the common denominator between the two. It's like there's two different people taking two different paths, but it both works because at the root of it, they're
Yes.
still fundamentally doing the same thing. They're still, eating more whole foods and nutrient density, and they're still getting the basic fundamental movement patterns and getting their heart rate up. So it's like, yeah, I know it looks different superficially, but on the deeper level, they're still doing the same thing between the
Oh,
two of them, and
it's
then it
really
becomes
true.
more about preference.
I mean, I think it's really funny because like there's these different camps in the fitness world, and it's like people want to argue like, no, calisthenics is better, no, weights is better, no, this is better. It's like we're all on the same team more or less.
Yeah.
The other team is people who are sedentary and aren't doing anything for their health. Like whether you lift weights, you do calisthenics, or you do martial arts, whatever you're into, if you're getting up and you're moving and you're challenging yourself and you're getting your heart rate up and you're sweating, we're cool. We're doing the same thing, you and me.
Yep. Yeah, and it's about having fun and enjoying the process at the end of the day. Like sometimes I've got to remind clients, I'm like, this is supposed to feel good. This is supposed to be fun and enjoyable and rewarding. And I think when we're looking at something and getting an evaluation of it, I think that's something that we can look at ultimately and say, all right, is this actually going to be working for me based on how much is it improving, not just helping me lose weight or growing bigger biceps, but am I just improving my life? Am I feeling better about things? Am I feeling better moving my body about things rather than just muddling through it and just trying to punish yourself into submission, hoping that your body can just get hammered into some sort of shape eventually?
Yeah, and I mean, to the point earlier about how sometimes two things can be opposite, but they can both be right for different people at different times. You said something about diet, and two of the most polarizing diets out there right now are veganism and the carnivore diet, right? Seemingly completely opposite on paper, and yet people who do either one often tend to see improvements in their health and weight loss. because the thing that those two diets have in common is you're cutting out a lot of processed bullshit. I mean, veganism, you can still have a lot of processed bullshit if you're not doing it right. But like if you're doing it properly and you're just really eating fruits and vegetables and nuts and things like that, then yeah, you probably are going to see some improvement in health. And same thing is true of carnivores. Like on the surface, it seems like these things are completely different, but they actually have a very big underlying similarity.
There's some sort of principle. I forget exactly what it was called. I want to say it was called like the Good Hearts Law or Good Art Law or something along the, but it's a observation about human behavior and psychology where, you have a point on one side of a spectrum and it's like, okay, we're, all the way towards this side and this is what we believe. And then, you get away from it and you keep going around and then the other folks are like, okay, we're completely opposite,
The
but
horseshoe.
actually it's a
Yeah.
horseshoe and they're
Yes.
actually like on a circle and they're still coming like right next to each other. So even though they're like, no, we're totally opposite, they're actually basically the same side. The more extreme you get, the more you're like the other side.
So
And I
true.
think that goes a lot to say with fitness is that when you take things to an extreme and you're like, oh, they're definitely in the wrong, it's like actually you're probably more like that person than someone who has more moderate approaches to when it comes to diet and exercise to
I mean,
things.
my diet is like a carnivore and a vegan. I eat vegetables and fruits, and I also eat a lot of meat, but I just don't eat a lot of sugar and a lot of processed stuff.
I
And I
always
think
said I
for me,
have
that's the way to go.
my diet was always paleo plus. And they're like, what do you mean
Yeah,
paleo? Well, I eat all the stuff you guys eat and all the other stuff too as well. So I get the benefits of that food as well. Like, and they're like, that's not paleo. I'm like, no, it's paleo plus. It's
I mean, I
plus all the
think what I do
benefits.
is pretty close to paleo at this point.
Mhm.
But not to say that I don't ever have a glass of wine or a scoop of ice cream. I have those things occasionally, just
Mhm.
a lot less than most people do, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And are you still doing like you were very big on the single meal a day? Are you still kind of along that line too?
Most days, I just eat a big dinner and that's it. Now
Hmm.
sometimes I'll have a snack during the day if I get really hungry. Today I had a banana a little bit before we got on this call because this is normally
Hmm.
around when I would be eating, and I didn't want to be
Oh,
distracted or hangry. So yeah,
yeah.
I'll have a little piece of fruit or something throughout the day. But yeah, generally I don't consider that a meal. I know people would
Right.
get the terminology or whatever, but I don't consider having an apple or banana as a snack a meal. I consider it a snack. But people are like,
Hmm.
no, you just broke your fast. It's like, it's okay.
It's all
Look,
right.
I'm
Yeah.
fine. Don't worry.
I just have this image in my head of you
Yeah,
getting a hangry and like grabbing that guitar in your background and smashing it on the wall and be like,
that
"Holy
hasn't happened
smokes, he's
yet,
going
thankfully.
crazy!"
You never know.
Yep. So, are you playing the guitar? Are you learning instruments?
I've played guitar. I'll tell you something crazy, Matt. For my 13th birthday, I got two very big presents that impacted my life. One of them was a guitar, and the other one was a pull-up bar.
Aha.
So I've been playing guitar just as long as I've been working out. The two things I've been doing for a long time.
Really? Now, I remember you saying, and you've got the horns on your hand there. Do you play like covers, metal covers or something, or do you like to play something else?
I play rock, metal, folk. A lot of people know this, but a lot don't. If you watch any of my videos on YouTube and you hear any music in the background, that's music that I've written and performed and recorded myself.
Really? I did not know that. Oh
Yes,
man, I'm
sir.
gonna go through your collection now. That's impressive. Wow, that's so cool. So you record it like with special equipment, like you have a little studio there, or?
I don't have anything that high tech. You don't know GarageBand, the MacBook program, right? Yeah, that's what
Sure.
I've done my recordings on.
Oh
I got a little
wow.
microphone and I got some instruments, and that's it.
Now, do you ever play with Danny there? Because I know he's been in bands and stuff ever since the beginning of
Well,
time.
Danny and I both, before we got into fitness, wanted to be musicians. He stayed on the music path a little longer than I did. I got into fitness a
Oh,
little earlier than him, but that was what we both wanted to do earlier in life. And
wow.
and then yeah, things took a different direction.
Huh. Man, I don't have a musical bone in my body. My nephew is like a musical prodigy. He plays like six instruments and stuff at the age of 13. He's
Oh wow,
doing compositions. He's quite impressive in what he does, and
maybe he'll
everybody's
be a
like,
personal trainer too one day. No,
"Yep." I'm still waiting because he comes from a very athletic background. His my brother-in-law's father was like a Division 1 athlete, and he's that kind of guy who will
Right
pick
on.
up anything and just be 10 times better than most people in a week, kind of thing. Drives you nuts. Uh, I'm relatively sure if he got into calisthenics, he'd be like, "So what is this?" And he'd like hit a perfect human flag, and I'd be like, "Oh, guys like you drive me crazy." And I was like, "Yeah, I just decided to try it one day." But yeah, the musical gene just totally missed me, unfortunately, which is why I guess I do pull-ups. But
There you go.
back to the program that you're coming out with.
Oh,
So
it's out
it's
already. It's available right now.
Oh yeah, sorry. Link
Yeah.
is down below, folks. By the way, I should have mentioned that earlier. I put the link down below, and it's a very comprehensive approach, which is unique these days in the world of fitness in general, because a lot of times with new courses and programs, it's kind of like, oh, here's how you can build muscle, or here's programming, like you said, old man strength for a particular demographic. I think we're long overdue for just a comprehensive calisthenics, just Bible, training Bible kind of thing. Because I mean, convict conditioning came out like 20 years ago or something like that. I don't know how long.
That book's been out for a while. You know, convict
Yeah.
conditioning, people ask me about this book a lot. And
Mm,
people probably ask you about it too. And the thing I always say about convict conditioning is it was a groundbreaking book and it inspired me tremendously. But there was a lot of room for improvement.
hmm
And I think that my programs, I hope this doesn't sound too arrogant, but I think Ultimate Calisthenics is much better than convict conditioning for beginner. And I know there's going to be people who are going to think that's blasphemous. They're going to think I'm out of my mind and I'm completely arrogant for saying that. But I couldn't have written this without convict conditioning coming first. But I think,
Sure.
you know, I think I took what Paul Wade did and have made it much more appropriate for the masses.
Yep, absolutely. And it's always about I always kind of looked at it like pizza restaurants. Like, you get a new pizza restaurant in town and you're like, seriously, how many different ways are we gonna make pizza here? Like, we've already got pizza for coffee or something like that. But the beautiful thing about calisthenics is that there are so many ways that it can be understood and practiced and taught to beginners, intermediate, advanced, that it really can become something you can take an ownership over. That it's not something where it's like you put a label on it and you're like, okay, I'm this kind of guy or this kind of athlete or something. You can have almost like your own way of practicing things, and comprehensive courses like this that give you the tools, I think, are the best shot at giving you the ability to do it kind of your own way over time, and learning what works best for you, and not having to conform to a program. Because especially convict conditioning, like I get questions from people, Paul Wade says do it this way, but I feel
Is
like
it
I should do
okay
it
if I
that
go
way,
ahead to the next step, even though I can't do 3 sets of 30 on the wall or whatever?
Exactly. Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
what do I do? And I think they're, like I was saying earlier, about like me deciding, like, I'm going to do this. I'm deciding I'm going to do this way, my way, kind
I've
of
been
thing.
stuck on step 7 for 16 years, but I can't move ahead.
Yeah. So I think, a program, or sorry, a course like yours that gives the empowerment, the ownership over calisthenics is just something that we all just need more of in our fitness culture in general, but especially when it comes to calisthenics, is the ability to have that independence over our own training, rather than to be dependent and just following along. And then you send me emails going like, program says to do it this exact way, but I feel like I might be better off doing it this other way. I was like, yeah, you're probably right. You probably are better off doing it that way. If your body is telling you, and your lifestyle is telling you, I want to make this change, very likely you probably should try that and see what happens.
Agreed.
Yep. So once again, dear listener, the link down below, Ultimate Calisthenics. Is there a subtitle to that, Al?
You know, there is, and I'm embarrassed to say I don't have it committed to memory. I think it's how to build real world strength and muscle and longevity with body weight training, something like that.
Yeah, I'm
I
blanking
should
on it
really
right
have
now
that committed
too.
to memory.
It's a great cover too. How did you get the art for that too? Is that your work as well?
You know that the photo on the cover, I took that photo myself
Fantastic.
with an auto timer. But then I had a professional graphic designer do the titles and everything, and he did a great job with it.
Yeah, it's very impressive, very eye-catching. I certainly saw it and I was like, whoa, oh wow, that's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
yes, dear listener, please do check it out down below. By all means, Al, where all the links down below for being able to reach out to you, all your socials and everything down below. But tell people where this stuff is again.
Yeah, so I'm easy to Google. If you can spell my last name, Kavadlo, I'm easy to find. And the programs are on fortifytraining.com. And some of your programs are up there too. So if people don't know that, they should check out your stuff while they're on the site.
Absolutely, more are coming too. I've been really kind of circling the wagons on my next course and program, and it's been kind of like pulling teeth right now. So it's been a little bit short in coming. So in the meantime, by all means, please build up your foundation here, folks. Get a more balanced approach with your calisthenics training. Don't just try to figure it out on your own with TikTok videos and stuff. You're going to spend the next 5 years trying to figure out how to do things. And even then, it's probably going to be piecemeal with a lot missing versus just getting Al's new course and getting it all right then and there. And you can learn it quick, much faster, much easier, and you're going to get results a heck of a lot faster. So definitely check that out versus just, trying to figure it out on your own. And if you do need more help, check out Al's remote coaching on Fortify. Because he's been doing this a long time. He's one of the best in the business at this, especially when it comes to calisthenics. You can't go wrong here. Please do that, and I promote it and endorse it 100%. Al, thank you so much for coming on to the RDP podcast. Any parting words of wisdom and thoughts for the audience, sir?
Hey, 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 we're working out. That's what I always say for anyone who doesn't know.
Fantastic. All right, folks, thanks again very much. Hit me up with your questions as always, and I'll see you next week. Till then, be fit and live free.